Good morning. Today's video, I hope, will bring a little bit of clarity to those that are still confused about different kinds of law and specifically about contracts. Let me just give the title and the blurb and then we'll talk about it a little bit. The OPPT, which is the One People's Public Trust, restores common law. One of my OPPT friends on Facebook offered to help me with the legal issues regarding my home. I was delighted, until I realized that she was still operating in admiralty law. Her conclusion after listening to my story was that I should make arrangements to move out of my home since I did not pay the loan. I was surprised that she didn't get it, that she was still looking at the old system of fraudulent contracts as having merit and value. Let me make it clear to those that still don't get it. The OPPT reestablishes and restores common law. That includes the definition of contracts. The entire corporate structure regarding money and finance operates with fraudulent contracts. That practice has been foreclosed on by the OPPT. The old system no longer has lawful standing. I say legal, but it really needs to be lawful, and I'm going to change it right now. Because legal standing and lawful standing are two different things. And I'll hopefully remember to explain that to you. Hold on a minute here. Regardless, it no longer has lawful standing regardless of how many people still want to play by the old rules and definitions. That's my blurb. Oh, let me see. I think this is a needed video, although for myself, I'd like to get beyond having to deal with this stuff. I'm tired of playing this game, of trying to get people to pay attention to common law for a very long time. That the whole freedom movement in the world is based on common law. And the whole admiralty system is based on a law that's totally opposed to common law. They operate as if corporations can be victims, or what's the correct term? The injured party. You can't injure a fiction, but the entire system of slavery, of human slavery and crimes against humanity, is based on legal fictions. It's based on corporations, which are legal fictions. Legal and lawful fictions. Legal means having to do with the system of slavery, basically, and lawful has to do with common law. And they don't match, they don't mesh. A contract, in order to be a contract, has to have an offer, an acceptance in strict compliance with the terms of the offer, has to have a legal purpose or objective, a mutuality of obligation, as also known as the meeting of the minds. It has to have consideration and competent parties. Legal fictions are never competent parties, and all commercial loan agreements, it doesn't matter what kind of a loan it is, whether it's a car loan, a student loan, a mortgage, a bridge loan, whatever kind of loan it is, if it's between legal fictions, they are not competent parties. You have to have real human beings that are totally accountable for the contract in order for it to be a valid contract. Consideration, in the whole system of finance in our world, consideration is misunderstood. Because the person who is purported to be the borrower is actually the lender. And that fact alone voids all the contracts. Because The value is produced by the person who signs the note. The check, or what the banks and what the system considers the consideration, the giving of the check, is actually follows the signing of the note, which gives value to the transaction. The value is in the negotiable instrument, the real money that's created, that doesn't have pictures of presidents or queens or anything else on the front of it. The actual monetary value, if you will, is in the negotiable instrument, in the note itself. And that is the value, and it's given by the borrower to the supposed lender, which means everything in the contract is fraud, because that fact is omitted from the paperwork. It's not specified in the paperwork. Furthermore, in the United States, there's an insurance policy on these kinds of transactions, and they are all insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And when a debt, it doesn't matter if it's a student loan, it doesn't matter if it's a mortgage, it doesn't matter what kind of thing it is. If that loan goes bad in the current system, the insurance covers at least 80% of the face value of the loan. So the bank, if you will, or the apparent lending institution gets paid back for its loss. And then they still try to come after the person, the individual that, quote, was the borrower. And on top of the FDIC, a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, in the United States, there was taxpayer money, the TARP money. And let me see, you got to go down and look at what TARP means. TARP is Troubled Asset Relief Program. Under the Troubled Asset Relief Program, the United States government corporation took taxpayer money to the tune of $3.5 trillion to cover bank losses from the bad debt. So they were paid, on top of the FDIC, they were paid TARP money. Now, in addition to that, the note, mortgage, negotiable instrument was securitized, which means it was converted from a loan to a stock, if you will, changing the whole structure of what it was. It's no longer a loan. Now it's a stock. It's a stock to be traded on the stock exchange. It's bundled into a mortgage-backed security, if you will, but they don't just do it with mortgages. They can do it with car loans, they can do it with student loans, or any kind of a loan made in a commercial institution. Any kind of a loan. They bundle them and they sell them, and it's put into a REMIC trust. Let me see. REMIC is Real Estate Mortgage Investment Conduit. It's a complex pool of mortgage securities created for the purpose of acquiring collateral. The collateral is the note and anything that was put up against the note. In my particular case, what was put up against the note was Dr. Mary's estate, and specifically my portion that belonged to me. It was mine. And I put that up in the bridge loan, but my property that I live in, my home that I live in, was never on the contract. Neither was the bank that's trying to take my home on the contract. In fact, most contracts were put in the name of MERS. And MERS, according to many rulings in the United States, has no lawful standing to foreclose. That's 62 million mortgages at least in this country that have no lawful standing in any legitimate court. And I'm not going to say that the courts are legitimate, because almost all of them are illegitimate, although we do have some honest judges, we do have some honest attorneys. But for the most part, they are operating fraudulently. They are in bed with each other. But in every way of looking at the current structure, financial structure, it's all a fraud. And common law restores that. The consideration, again, is the person who creates the wealth. And that's not the bank. That's not the lending institution. Everything has been turned on its head. And it's so important that we get this. It's so important. And I'm surprised, on one hand, that someone that's part of the OPPT, or at least I thought she was, still doesn't get it, still is operating under the fraudulent thing and saying that the fraud has meaning, that it has value, that there's something to be paid back. There's nothing to be paid back. It's already been paid. It's already been paid in full. The debt is not a real debt. Actually, the bank owes the borrower the money. You say, well, they already paid it. And in a sense, they did. They paid it. Okay? And then they went and they recouped their money over and over and over again. And I heard somebody say thousands of times, but that's not true. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times maybe, but not thousands of times, not even hundreds of times. But they resell those notes. They resell photocopies of them. That's called counterfeiting. When you sell a photo, when you negotiate with a photocopy of something that's supposed to have value, that's called counterfeiting. It would be the same as me making photocopies of $100 bills and trying to pay my debt in the system with the photocopy. But they do it with mortgage notes and with other loan instruments. Okay? They do it all the time. It's counterfeiting, folks. That's where the, what's the word? That's where all these fraudulent, I wish I could remember the word. It frustrates me when I know the word. I know it well, but I keep saying the one that keeps coming to mind is commodity, but it's not a commodity. What's the word for the mushrooming the money and mushrooming it and making it grow and grow and grow? Derivatives. It's the derivatives market. It's derived from fraud, though. The derivatives are all fraudulent. They're not things of actual value. It's all counterfeiting. The whole system. And the OPPT has traced that. Heather has done her homework, and others in the OPP have done their homework. They've traced that. It recognizes the fraud for what it is. And that's why the institutions were foreclosed upon. And no one, listen to me, no one yet has rebutted the OPPT point by point on and for the record under penalty of perjury. Nobody's done that. Nobody. And until they do it, the OPPT stands as law. That's common law. We've called them on their crap. When I say we, Heather did it. Heather did it for all of us. We can all take advantage. Now, some of us, perhaps like this lady, have been earning their living or doing what they're doing, getting their meaning in life from helping others, but it's not helping when it's still going in the old system. And this lady may not like it that I'm ranting on this, but this is a fraudulent structure. I don't have to get out of my home. They have no value, no claim on my home. The equity in my home is equity that I put there. They didn't put any equity in this home, never. It was never named. And how she can come across telling, well, make plans to move. Now, I'm not telling you that they don't force people out of their homes in the system. They do. At the point of a gun sometimes. And some people perhaps have even been killed or incarcerated for trying to stand up for what is true and what is right. But you need to understand the foundation that this whole thing is based upon. It's based on common law. And corporations can't exist in common law because they because the people that run the corporations use the corporation to commit fraud by absolving themselves of responsibility and accountability for their processes that they carry out. And their processes, as I said, are fraudulent. I don't know if this has been helpful or not to anyone, but I felt, in light of the emails that went back and forth yesterday between me and this lady that was trying to help me, I knew that I had to deal with this in this thing, and I hope I can get beyond that and get to the more spiritual stuff, which I like a whole lot better. But perhaps there are others in the same boat as me that are getting advice from someone that says, well, I have all this experience, but their experience is in the old system. And we're under a new paradigm now, if we can see it that way. It doesn't mean that everybody's there, but we're in a new paradigm. Thank you for listening. Namaste. Oh, dear.